December 16, 1944. A small village in the Ardennes forest, near the border of Belgium and Germany. A young boy named Emile watches snowflakes drift past his window, each one a tiny, silent star against the gray morning. The air is still, cold, and carries the faint scent of pine and wood smoke. For a moment, the war feels distant, a story told by adults in hushed tones. But then, a low rumble begins, a vibration felt more in the bones than heard with the ears. It grows, shaking the glass in its frame, a monstrous, mechanical dragon awakening in the mist-shrouded hills. This was the dawn of the Battle of the Bulge, and for Emile, and millions like him, the line between home and hell was about to vanish. The Second World War is often remembered through the lens of grand strategy, of clashing armies and heroic soldiers. But beneath this narrative of military conflict lies a darker, more sprawling tragedy, the story of the civilians. An estimated 55 to 60 million non-combatants perished during the 6 years of global warfare. The staggering number represents men, women, and children who were not soldiers, but who found themselves on the front lines of a war that made no distinction between battlefield and backyard. Their homes became targets, their cities became tombs, and their lives were consumed by hunger, disease, and the systematic brutality of occupation and extermination. Theirs is not a story of tactics or territory, but of survival against impossible odds, and of the profound human cost when the engines of war are unleashed upon the world. From the very beginning, this was a different kind of war. The Blitzkrieg tactics that saw German forces sweep across Poland in 1939 were not just aimed at defeating an army, they were designed to terrorize and break the will of a nation. For the first time, air power was used on a massive scale against civilian centers. The Luftwaffe's bombing of Warsaw was a horrifying preview of what was to come. Stuka dive bombers, with their terrifying sirens, plunged toward residential streets, turning apartment blocks into rubble. In the besieged city, Polish civilians dug trenches, fought fires, and tended to the wounded, their ordinary lives shattered by a strategy of total war. They faced a choice between surrender and annihilation, a choice no civilian should ever have to make. As the conflict spread, the strategy of targeting civilians became a grimly accepted reality on all sides. In the United Kingdom, the Blitz rained fire and destruction upon London, Coventry, and other industrial cities for months on end. Families huddled in Anderson shelters in their gardens or sought refuge in the tunnels of the London Underground, the nightly wail of the air raid siren becoming the soundtrack of their existence. Yet, defiance grew in the rubble. The Blitz spirit became a symbol of British resilience, a testament to ordinary people carrying on with extraordinary courage. They cleared debris, ran volunteer services, and defiantly declared that their spirit would not be broken. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the war against the Soviet Union descended into a level of savagery that remains almost incomprehensible. Operation Barbarossa was not just a military invasion. It was ideologically driven, a war of annihilation. Nazi doctrine deemed the Slavic peoples as subhuman, and this philosophy was put into practice with chilling efficiency. The Siege of Leningrad stands as one of history's most horrific episodes. For 872 days, the city was cut off, its population slowly starved. People ate wallpaper paste, boiled leather, and eventually each other. Over 1 million civilians died, not from bombs, but from the slow, agonizing grip of hunger and cold. Their suffering was a weapon, wielded with deliberate cruelty. Across German-occupied Europe, life became a daily struggle for survival. Rations were meager, curfews were strict, and the ever-present threat of the Gestapo instilled a deep-seated fear. Any act of resistance, real or suspected, could lead to arrest, torture, or public execution. Entire villages, like Lidas in Czechoslovakia or Oradour-sur-Glane in France, were wiped from the map in brutal reprisals, their inhabitants massacred as a warning to others. Yet, even in this climate of terror, resistance flickered. Clandestine networks printed underground newspapers, helped downed Allied airmen escape, and carried out acts of sabotage. These were quiet acts of war, fought by teachers, shopkeepers, and farmers who risked everything for a sliver of freedom. But the most systematic and industrialized campaign against civilians was the Holocaust. Rooted in a vile ideology of racial purity, the Nazi regime orchestrated the genocide of 6 million European Jews, alongside millions of others they deemed undesirable: Roma, homosexuals, political dissidents, and people with disabilities. This was not a byproduct of war. It was a central objective. Families were torn from their homes, herded into ghettos, and then transported in cattle cars to a network of concentration and extermination camps. In places like Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, and Sobibor, human beings were stripped of their names, their dignity, and finally, their lives. It was a factory of death, operated with bureaucratic precision. The smoke that rose from the crematoria was a permanent stain on the sky, a symbol of humanity's capacity for calculated, industrial-scale evil. As the tide of the war turned, the suffering of civilians only intensified. The Allied strategic bombing campaign, designed to cripple Germany's war industry, brought the war home to the German people with devastating force. Cities like Hamburg and Dresden were consumed by firestorms, infernos so intense they created their own weather systems, sucking the oxygen from the air and turning bomb shelters into ovens. Hundreds of thousands of civilians died in these raids. The moral questions surrounding these attacks are debated to this day, a stark reminder that in total war, the lines between military necessity and civilian protection become terrifyingly blurred. In the Pacific, the war against Japan was fought with a particular ferocity. The Japanese military's own code of conduct often resulted in extreme brutality against civilians in occupied territories, most infamously in the rape of Nanking, where hundreds of thousands were murdered. On the island of Okinawa, the civilian population was caught in the crossfire of one of the war's bloodiest battles. Urged by Japanese soldiers to commit mass suicide rather than surrender to the Americans, thousands of families took their own lives. The war in Asia was a maelstrom of imperial ambition, racial hatred, and desperate defense that consumed millions of civilian lives from China to the Philippines. Finally, the war reached its apocalyptic conclusion with the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In a flash of unimaginable light and heat, two cities were vaporized. Tens of thousands of civilians were killed instantly, their shadows burned into walls. Tens of thousands more would die in the following weeks, months, and years from radiation sickness, their bodies silently poisoned by an invisible enemy. The mushroom cloud became the ultimate symbol of humanity's newfound power of self-destruction, a power that had been unleashed not on a military base, but on cities filled with men, women, and children. The survivors, the Hibakusha, would carry the physical and psychological scars for the rest of their lives, their existence a living testament to the dawn of the nuclear age. When the guns finally fell silent in 1945, the world was a landscape of ruins. But the deepest scars were not in the shattered buildings or cratered fields. They were carved into the human soul. Millions were displaced, becoming refugees wandering a continent in tatters, searching for lost family members or a place to call home. The world had witnessed the unthinkable, a descent into barbarism that challenged the very notion of progress and civilization. The story of the civilians of World War II is a harrowing, essential part of our shared history. It is a cautionary tale, written in tears and blood, about the true cost of hatred, ideology, and total war. Remembering their suffering is not about dwelling on the darkness, but about honoring their memory and reaffirming our commitment to ensuring that such a catastrophe is never, ever repeated. The silence that followed the war was not empty. It was filled with the ghosts of 55 million people who simply wanted to live. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into history. Every story remembered is a lesson learned.